and welcome to the Online Trainers Podcast, where we go behind the scenes to uncover the latest tactics and strategies top trainers around the world are using to get more clients, dominate their marketplace, and get their clients amazing results. There is absolutely no fluff here. I'm your host, Lynn Trin. Hello and welcome to episode number 26 on the Online Trainers Podcast. Today's topic is how you start to become the big fish inside the small pond. Now, a topic that I'm really passionate about, and if you know me, if you're inside the Online Trainers Club Facebook group, which if you aren't, by the way, feel free to join because it's awesome inside there. But if you're in there, you'll know I talk about niching down and why I believe that micro niching is really the name of the game when it comes to building a successful online personal training business, but also a legacy. When I talk about a business needs to fundamentally have a few products and services. A business should be able to operate when you're not there. A business doesn't mean that you're writing programs and you are the sole business owner. And first off, I do appreciate and I do understand that every new personal trainer that is listening to this podcast, if you're listening to this, you were in the gym and you're wanting more and you're wanting to step forward into the online world and you want more freedom, you want more fun and finance. And that's what we do. That's why we take the crazy risks. But the key fundamental behind this is that the online industry, the online space is such a huge space. It's such a new space. When we look at this, we couldn't talk about micro niching down or niching down back in the year 2000, even back before then, because back then where the internet, when we didn't have Facebook, we couldn't move around as quickly and as, I suppose, lean as businesses are getting built nowadays. You'll see businesses such as Facebook, and how Facebook started was that it was a micro niche as well. It was just a social media platform for university students to share, their stories. And then it started to become that bigger fish inside the small pond. And then it took over another big pond, and now it's the world's biggest social media platform. But what I'm trying to tell you is that building a business, what you think a business requires 10 years ago in terms of branding, in terms of lead generation, in terms of attracting new customers, isn't how new businesses are built today, especially in the online world. And, we see so many young superstars, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds coming in, making 6 figures, making 7 figures, creating an app and selling it because they don't have that belief. They don't know what it was like to grow up when we had brick and mortar businesses, when we had this belief of how a business should run. And that's why they're able to go in and dominate, because they don't have that attachment to how a business should run. Okay. And the whole aim of this podcast today is really to get you to become that big fish inside a small pond, because that small pond is a pond that probably has $1 million in it. And for most personal trainers, if you can generate a 6-figure income, you're going to be more than happy. You're going to obviously have your finances sorted so that you can go and actually start spreading your message of essentially what it is that you believe in, what movement you're trying to create. A really good book that goes into this that I've actually started reading is The Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. And he goes in and he talks about how you can, become that key person of influence within that niche. So every single tribe, every single niche, we have a niche of fat loss, but then we have a micro niche of vegan bodybuilding inside fat loss. And we can even break that down more to another pond, a smaller bowl, fish bowl. We can actually go, hey, I'm going to go and focus on female vegan bodybuilding and talk specifically on female hormones for vegan bodybuilding. Okay. And when you start to micro niche down, what you need to understand is that I get that inside your area, when you're looking at your local suburb, there isn't going to be much female vegan bodybuilders around there that want to get into shape, that want to get strong and want to get shredded, right? But when you go online, when you go into the online world, I bet you can actually find 1,000 people, 10,000 people that firstly have no idea, how to get into shape because they're on the vegan diet, are getting mixed messages, and they really need someone to step up and lead them. And that's what being the key person of influence is. It's actually going up and leading a specific tribe of people. So if you have a tribe of people that you have female vegan bodybuilders that want to get into shape, and you're that person and you know your stuff and you're committed to being the expert and you're committed to learning more, you can go in and dominate that. And so that's what we're finding with business nowadays. That's how businesses are running, because when you run small, when you run and start dominating your niches, what will happen over time, and whether it happens in 10 years, 15 years, maybe next year, I don't think next year, but all these little micro niches will be taken up and people will step up. Okay, there'll be people stepping up in, vegan bodybuilding. There'll be other people stepping up in post-comp for vegan competitors, right? And you'll have all these people stepping up and owning that space. So that's something for you to think about, because at this very moment in time, if you are the generalist, if you're just putting yourself out there, advertising yourself as the personal trainer who helps people get into shape, you might do okay at best. Okay, and when I say okay, I say, look, it's a stable income, but you're not really going to build legacy off it. You're not going to create this movement. You're not going to create a tribe of people, of loyal fans that know, love, and trust you, that would do anything for you and stay with you no matter what. Okay, and that's the whole importance of niching down. So the big thing I want you to think about today is, number one, when I tell people to micro niche down, they're like, well, Lynn, I'm a bit scared because now I'm going to lose 75% of my clients, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what I want to go to. And so ultimately, I really have to say that your niche comes back to choosing something that you're completely passionate about, that you can read about all day, every day, and teach, even if you weren't getting paid. But really, your niche is generally your own experience of the fitness industry and why you got into there in the first place and how you've evolved. Okay. And definitely you've come across some things that you dislike. You come across some things that you hate. You come across some things that you bond with and connect with. So that becomes your niche. That's the things that you're going to be talking about. That's the kind of people that you attract to save the person that is going through a similar experience that was you 3 years ago, to save them from all the hardships that you've had to experience through that education. Okay. So a lot of the times, I do get asked, hey, what niche should I go in? And for me, the biggest mistake that you can ever make is to go into a niche that you're not passionate about, a micro niche. And I say this time and time again, because initially I trained women when I started out online, because that was a great niche. Women strength training and butt building for chicks, that was a huge niche, right? So I thought, okay, well, how can I monetize from this? I built it. And in the end, I just had to scrape it. So it then became a costly exercise of me building something and not fulfilling it because I had no passion, I had no drive. And that's the thing, as business owners, as people aspiring to become entrepreneurs, you're pulled by passion and you're pulled by your why. You're not pulled by the money, okay? And that's what I'm going to tell you. Just as part of my experience, I then went into the dad's niche. I obviously didn't learn enough. So we ran a dad's transformation program, got great results, enjoyed it. I bonded and I learned to love it. But I didn't really love it, okay, because dads were working out at home and I love lifting heavy weights. So that's exactly my mistakes in understanding, okay, what niche do I pick? And the first thing is, if you're going to pick a niche that you're looking for the profits in, that's a big, big mistake. So the key question I want you to answer today, and something that I want you to go through and do it as an exercise, is what pond are you going to become the big fish in? Okay, what niche, micro niche are you going to go in? Fat loss isn't enough. Female fat loss isn't enough. They're still niches. What micro niche? How can you break that down until you segment one particular segment of that market, and then you can bring that online and your messaging just becomes like sniper rifle rather than using like a shotgun approach. And I generally say that, we only have a certain amount of capacity in terms of, when you start out by yourself. So, we only have a bucket of water. And what I say is, if you're trying to wet 100 people with that bucket of water, everyone's got to get a bit of a sprinkle. But if you actually zone down and you target just one person, one particular niche with that bucket of water, you can actually make a greater impact on them. And so, you're really going to get attention. And I hope that analogy helps, because when I heard that, it was a fantastic analogy that was like, holy moly, I need to be able to use that, but I needed to share that with you. Okay. So a lot of the times you're probably wondering why your messaging isn't getting through, why nobody's signing up, why it's so hard to get clients. And that is because you're trying to throw a small bucket of water, and you're trying to soak 100 people, and that barely made a splash on them. Okay. Whereas you go with that bucket and you go with that one person and you give it a big splash. And that's when you can actually start communicating with your niche clients, with your prospects, with your customers. And it just makes the whole process easy. And I know I've talked about niching down and micro niching down, but this process is really the fundamental key flaw as to why so many personal trainers are struggling to get more leads. They're struggling to understand how they should talk on social media. They're struggling on what emails to write. They're struggling on the blog contents. They're struggling on getting results because they actually haven't focused on the one particular area. You can't be a jack of all trades. You'll become a master of none. Okay. So Your task for today is to answer this question. And whether or not you write it on a review, whether or not you write it to a friend, whether or not you write it inside the Online Trainers Club group, you have to answer this question. What big fish are you going to be in your small pond? Okay, and what is the pond? What niche are you going to choose to become that big fish out of? Because it's so much easier to become a shark inside a small pond and dominate it than it is to go out into a big ocean and try to tackle all the other sharks. Okay, so that is the question of the day. And once again, if you enjoyed this podcast and you know a friend, a colleague, a trainer that can benefit from it, I'm sure they would appreciate it if you sent it to them. And that way you can kind of tee up and kind of work on each other's niches, kind of implement, actually not kind of, you'll implement these strategies together and you've got yourself an accountability brother, a buddy. But what's most important is that when you have this accountability buddy, okay, you're going to implement. And that's the whole point of these podcast episodes, is so that you go out there and implement. You don't go out there and get more information, get more useless information clogging up your brain. All right. So have a fantastic day and I'll see you on the next episode. All right. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes and feel free to leave a review. In that way, I can respond and I can take that on board in developing content to serve you. Now, if you're not a part of the Online Trainers Club on Facebook, please do yourself a favor and be a part of the conversation. That's where I add daily tips, tricks, and strategies on how you can build out funnels, how you can get more clients, and ultimately become a better online coach. Thank you for listening.